Hello, this is John, Jaw1, and I'm here with Evelyn, and we are going to look at some of her artwork related to the art show Metal Lovebirds. So, Evelyn,
John, hi John.
hey! Um, First of all, your work really has turned into a three-dimensional uh, journey for this show.
Yes.
Would you like to say anything about the journey?
Well, as John said earlier, the title of the show was called Metal Lovebirds, and the title, it wasn't for us to do anything specific. It was more for the artists to have their own interpretation of what it meant to them. And I work with a lot of found objects, a lot of scrap metals, a lot of things, a lot of materials, and so I incorporated some of those things into my work. I have to say that this has been probably some of the funnest or most fun I've had with my art. Just trying to figure out how to use the material and incorporate it into the pieces that I wanted to. I wanted to talk about connection with each other, and this big piece that is right here came from a conversation that I had with a friend, and we were talking about how we don't, as humans, we don't really, sometimes we say we understand each other, but we don't really connect the understanding, so we end up knowing but not understanding. And we were talking about how we have to pretend that we have an invisible cable connected to each other, so we can, instead of just knowing, we could fully understand what is being shared with each other. And so the title of this one was called Stop Breaking Communication, or Stop Breaking the Communication. And there's a brake pad right there. And it's just a symbol of how they're stopping that, and they're trying to connect with each other. The other piece on the other side is kind of like, I don't know if they can hear me, my own Loteria card, but I took the idea from Renette Magritte, The Lovers, and I titled it Los Amantes. But I did my own version of it, just incorporating his background and the whole idea. And I thought it would be fun to use the character that I normally draw to establish the connection of what I wanted to be said, using found objects and other materials. And we have the two little birds, which I drew both at separate times, and I called it Replica because I find it, in this world, we're so used to replicating everything, even now doing clones, remaking things of things is not in our custom anymore. It's more of creating and creating and creating and making overabundance of things, and I feel that not only are we replicating things, but we're replicating people's emotions and just becoming robots. And that's what I thought about when I did that. With this piece in particular, I used some of the same shapes and same materials and same forms, and I split them in half, and I called it my better half. this was more of a using different materials to make two wild birds, but making them from half of the half and connecting them, because when you find your mate, instead of being a whole person, you're half of the other half, and a half of the other half makes one. So you make one heart, one connection with your other half. That was more of my thing. And this piece, I called it Able to Love. I feel that sometimes the show was called Metal Lovebirds, and I don't think that metal birds can fly unless you design them to. But even if we feel like robots and we feel trapped, we are still able to love and find our ways to connect with each other. And that was the whole thought behind it. And it's metal, it's galvanized wire work with other materials. And I just thought about the whole process of this work it's teaching me how to recreate out of other things. Like, who knew that I could make a tree out of a vinyl? You know, how did I ever think of making those half birds from all this material? And I just thought that, we need to start thinking about how we could live simpler lives. We're so used to loving materials instead of loving people. We need to learn how to love people, not love things. And I guess the last thing I have to say is just we are responsible as human beings. We're responsible to care for our world and make it a better place for the future generations. And if we don't, then we're screwed. That's why there's so many diseases, so many, things that happen, because we're not careful with the things we recreate or create, more likely. The hazardous things. If people are more informed of all these things, then people would realize that recycling is important. And one of my motto is recycle, reuse, reduce, and recreate. So start recreating people.
Okay. If people want to see more about you, they can find you on your website?
My website is www.earthcaringart.com, and you can find info on my art and art shows and little basic things for recycling, videos, whatever, things that are interesting to me that will help people recycle or be creative.
Okay. Thank you.